Hello. Welcome back, chat. A couple days ago we did Clash Royale's most annoying card, aka the Firecracker. Today we're going to be reacting to another Gratz video, the history of Clash Royale's biggest joke. So yeah, let's get right into it. Also, shout out to Gratz. Go check out the man's channel. He's very entertaining, you know. Shawty, get inspired. How about that?
Go healthy. Go magnesium sleep with passion flower and hops.
So
traditionally used.
That's really fun. Giving me an ad at the start of the.
Sleep. So getting a good night's rest should be the least of your
Fuck
worries.
off!
Go healthy.
Please! Please!
She could
Thank
easily be pushed to the left side.
I've never even watched the video. It does this for all of them. Look,
I've talked a lot in the past about
why the bomber took 5 years. Never watched it. Haven't, like...
5 elixir long range. I've talked a lot in the past about 5 elixir long range splash cards and how historically they've had a tough time finding a proper place in Clash Royale. They're a small class of cards likely because of this fact. However, there's one card in an even smaller category that's close to this.
No.
A card that at one point had a tougher time finding a place in the meta than all of the 5 elixir
No.
range splash cards. This was a 6 elixir range splash card, also known as Sparky. Sparky is one of the oldest legendaries in Clash Royale. As a legendary card, Sparky was unique in
Unk status.
many ways, and not just because it was expensive and did a lot of damage. However, in its early days, it was considered to be one of the, if not the worst card in Clash Royale for a long time.
It's still dog shit.
So, what made it so bad? Why did it take so long for it to find its place? And what was even the intended purpose of this card? Today, we're going to answer all those questions, cover all of its developments, and talk about other factors that drove Sparky to be where it is today. So let's learn a little about Sparky. What exactly is a Sparky? Well, to put it simply, she's a machine that shoots sparks. She's electric. And yes, I say she because that's how the game refers to it.
Why? Bro, why give it a gender? But okay.
Despite not resembling a living, conscious being. Sparky was released into the arena on May 3rd, 2016 as a new legendary card. But what exactly made her legendary? Well, Sparky had a very different way of attacking compared to every other troop. She didn't need to be locked onto anything before charging her attack. She charged it as she moved. Once she was fully charged, she could hold it as long as she wished and just wait for a troop to walk within range. Once a troop was in range for half a second, she would fire a devastating charge that dealt more damage than any other card
Wait, what? Mini P.E.K.K.A dies to that?
in Clash Royale
What
dealt
about
in a
Valk?
single attack. More than double what a P.E.K.K.A dealt.
What? Double a P.E.K.K.A's damage? I don't know.
Didn't even have that much health, so she could one-shot herself. And she wiped out a princess tower in only 2 shots. So this card was definitely not something you wanted to ignore. Charging wasn't the only thing that made Sparky unique, however. Since her blast was so powerful, she
Unique? You mean fucking dog shit?
would actually recoil backwards 1.5 tiles every time she fired. No other troop recoiled with their attack. This meant you had to be mindful when placing her to make sure she wouldn't end up in a spot you didn't want her to be in. For example, if you placed her right next to the center on the right and she attacked,
she just
she
keep
could
going to
easily
the tower.
be pushed to the left side, then travel down the left lane when her target was gone, which you may not have intended for if you were specifically placing her on the right. Also, because her attack range was 4.5 tiles and her sight range was 5 tiles, the recoil could actually push her out of view,
And she'd have to
which
walk
would lead
forward.
to her abandoning
just
the
leaving.
fight early.
Oh, yeah.
But as a ranged troop, this was useful for keeping her away from enemy troops. Obviously, with so
Just
many
give me a flashback of a fucking Firecracker.
strong attributes, there was bound to be some major drawbacks. Her health was one. She wasn't exactly fragile, but not as tanky as you'd expect.
Bro, the amount of times I get fucking so pissed off that a Sparky... So she fully charges, right? Like, let's say she just hits something, right? She takes fucking... Not only, like... I could go to the shops and back and, like, get some fucking lollies from the servo. This bitch is still charging, like a fucking Tesla. And then, not only does she fully charge it, like, that takes forever, but this bitch fucking takes forever to shoot. They need to nerf the shoot thing. Like, the charging thing's fine, but the shooting takes too long.
6 elixir card to be. Her health was between the range of being able to survive a lightning, but not a rocket. So, if your opponent had a rocket, you did not want to place it in the back, because they could easily take it out for an equal elixir trade while getting a ton of damage on your tower. But the health wasn't the biggest drawback. That would go to her hit speed. Sparky had the slowest hit speed in Clash Royale at 5 seconds. In Clash Royale time, that's an eternity. This meant you could never use her as a reactionary defense.
Bruh.
You had to plan out your push and be patient to get value. On the plus side, though, she could be used to create an area of denial.
Yeah.
If Sparky's placed in the back, it wouldn't be smart for the opponent to place any ground troops in that lane because Sparky would evaporate it.
Actually, you could still do like a fucking Prince, Mega Knight, 6 elixir. It's not gonna one-shot.
There's one more important thing we need to talk about in regard to Sparky, and that was a very unique interaction that occurred between her and 2 other cards.
Oh,
The Freeze,
what's
and
that?
more significantly,
The
the
Freeze?
Zap. These cards would temporarily stop any troop within its radius from attacking and moving.
Okay.
However, these cards did not simply temporarily halt the Sparky's attack, it completely
Reset
reset
them.
it,
Oh,
which
God.
they didn't do with any other card. So even if Sparky was
I didn't know Freeze fucking reset Sparky's charge. Am I dumb?
fully charged when it got zapped, it would take
Yeah, I think I'm
another
just
5
dumb.
seconds to fully charge. Even other cards that had to charge their attack, like the Inferno Tower, didn't interact with the zap or freeze like this. At least, not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
It was pretty arbitrary to give these cards such a massive advantage over a 6 elixir legendary. Just for some perspective on how devastating this was, Sparky took 1 second to deploy, 5 seconds to charge, and half a second after charging to shoot. So theoretically, if
Get rid of the last stat. I already said it. Just get rid of it. Fuck that. Scrap the idea. Fuck off. I hate that. That's the only downside. I mean, not the only. That's not what I'm saying. Like, just make the card so much better.
you zapped it exactly 6.4
Give us an
seconds after
Evo
it was
Sparky.
placed, it would take 12.9 seconds to attack even once, giving more than enough time for just about anything to completely take it out before Sparky even had a chance. So if you were going against a Zap player as a Sparky user, you were going to have a really tough time because your Sparky would essentially get denied a shot for 2 elixir constantly. And with Zap being one of the most used cards in the game, you always had to be prepared to deal with it. The worst part is, there was no counterplay. You couldn't counter a spell. If your opponent wanted to zap your Sparky, they were gonna zap your Sparky. And since the deploy was instant,
I gotta pay, so I'm gonna work every day.
you
My bad.
never had any
Sorry,
warning,
Jack, I can't
which is
control it.
why it was no surprise that within the first few weeks of Sparky's release, it saw very little top ladder usage. Despite its clear immediate underperformance, there were some defenders of the card, saying it could be good if used correctly. It was still too early to tell for sure, but it was not looking good. Sparky was a scary card to go against if you didn't understand her mechanics. You had to know how to properly counter her or she would be deadly. So I think a lot of players just weren't sure how to deal with her yet, and once they learned, they wouldn't think she was so good. Seth, the community
Also, for whoever watches this video, fuck you guys telling me about the AI generated bullshit. That Firecracker one was actual dog shit, I'm not even gonna lie. The Rage one was okay, but yo, get off my ass, man. Like, you guys are, bro, these aren't cutting it, blah blah blah. Get out! Like, I made a fucking thumbnail for you guys, so you guys better be fucking happy and not complain, you little fucking bitch.
manager
who
actually
you
talked about
are.
how this card was originally overhyped.
Sparky was probably the most anticipated and most excited of the new cards. It's a
Is
big
my
rolling
man in the
machine.
bathroom? Like-
it was the first troop to deal more damage than itself had health, so people were excited about the idea of just doing an insane amount of damage. In fact, it was considered very overpowered and broken when it was first spoiled.
Whether or not it was a good card, it was at least very fun to play compared to most other cards. But fun didn't mean it was getting any better. Within another month, nobody in Top Ladder was using it. It was just too difficult to get any value out of. You pretty much had to build the entire deck around protecting and supporting her. It just wasn't worth the hassle. From this point on, Sparky's use rate in Top Ladder stayed between 0 and 1%, which suggests the card was borderline useless. However, Sparky still seemed to have a small core fan base. She was widely viewed as an underdog. Like, for example, in August 2016, a single Top Ladder player was using it. and Sparky fans were cheering this on as if this was a huge win. And in case you were wondering, this was the deck that one player was using. But at the same time, 98% of those players, yes, 98% were using Zap
because
the
it's
card
better than
Sparky
Log.
suffered
And
most
Log still
against.
and Log
You were practically
resets fucking
guaranteed
Sparky
to
as
go
well.
against
So
Zap during
that's
this time.
bullshit.
It was a must-have, so it was something you were just going to have to accept if you took on the challenge of playing this machine. By now, it had been over 3 months since this card was released, and it was still clearly suffering competitively. It seems like a buff was in order, but Supercell was being very patient with this card.
Y'all remember the Clash of Ram episode with the Sparky when the Sparky had like fucking just it was leaking aura, like what was it, the Valken the Archer were like taking it to battle. Man, Clash of Rama, bro, it was so peak.
Given how scary it was to lower ladder players. But it was weird at the same time, because the team had always been very adamant on ensuring all legendaries were viable, even if they had to be a little stronger on average. Because legendaries were so expensive to level, they usually wanted to ensure you were getting your money's worth. No reasonable person was saying a Sparky buff had to be huge, or that Supercell should have rushed it, but the more time that passed, the more ridiculous it was that this card was neglected. For the next couple of months, there would be good news and bad news for Sparky. The good news is, the Zap stun time was lowered by half a second. It still fully reset Sparky, but it made the card less prominent, and of course, if it did zap a Sparky, it would be able to start recharging and thus attack a half second faster. But the bad news is, in September 2016, the Lightning was given the stun ability. And with the recent Ice Spirit addition on top of that, there were 4 cards that could fully reset a Sparky now. And this totaled up to 4 spells you were going to have a tough time
and the
beating
Log
as a Sparky
when
player.
that comes out.
But even after all this, Sparky would receive no buffs and no reworks.
That's Supercell
and
for
in
you.
the foreseeable future, continued to see absolutely no usage in competitive play. Players were getting fed up with Sparky receiving absolutely no attention. People were clamoring for buffs. In this period, she acquired the popular nickname Trash Can on Wheels, which just goes to show how much of a
okay. No one's using that unk, but alright.
joke she was at this point. She served no purpose. She was extremely
Are just AIs? Were AIs playing the game back then? No one. I've literally never heard anyone call her that, but okay.
easy to counter and attacked way too slow. By the end of 2016, she still hadn't received even a single balance change. This was 7 months since her release. It would be one thing if they were hesitant because she dominated the game in an unhealthy way and the team didn't want to repeat their mistake, but she hadn't shown any viability in the competitive scene since her release. And just as a final kick to the nuts, to end off 2016, Supercell added the Electro Wizard,
and the Wizard,
a card that stunned its target every time it attacked. So in a one-on-one interaction against the Sparky, it would win completely unscathed because it would just constantly reset her. It didn't even matter if the Wizard was level 1 and Sparky was maxed. It was bad enough to have cards that could reset Sparky once, but infinitely? That was a whole new level. Electro Wizard only increased the Sparky meme.
Damage, fuck everything, no zap. Damage per second, fuck everything, no zap.
She was referred to more as Trash Can on Wheels than her actual
No, she
Players
wasn't.
who got her from a chest, you avoided her at all costs when drafting, and you just laughed if your opponent ever played her. There was never a reason to play Trash Can on Wheels and never a situation it thrived in. It was the butt of every joke. The absolute worst of the worst. Even the Wizard looked like a mid-tier card compared to it, and yet she continued to receive no changes. From October 2016 through March 2017, there was not a single recorded instance of Trash Can on Wheels having any presence in top ladder. By May 3rd, 2017, the Trash Can on Wheels had been in the game.
I'm playing the game since 2017. I've literally heard no one say that.
Whatsoever. There had never been a card up to this point that
I was
had
probably
gotten
too young.
zero
I wasn't on
balance changes
Reddit.
the first year of their release. And if your nickname is literally Trash Can, you're clearly
I'm
not
not
a rare
I'm
exception
not
to
a
being
skip it,
perfectly
Gratz.
balanced
Shut
healthy
up.
card from day one. So why was Supercell ignoring Trash Can so much?
I'm
I understand not
It's
wanting
not even referring, it's a Sparky.
to rush into a change for a potentially
listen.
rage-inducing card.
No.
But 1 year was more than enough time for settling and planning a good change. The dev's only explanation from what I could find was that it wasn't a fun card to lose to, which is just such weird reasoning because this logic wasn't applied to
Especially
any
the
other
win rate.
card.
Yeah,
Prince was
the win
considered a
rate.
low ladder menace for a while, and he got buffed.
He still
Expo
is.
was considered to be one of the most toxic defensive cards in the game.
Still
and
is.
They still attempted to fix that. Even spawner buildings got some love and attention here and there, and they were probably the most hated, least fun cards to lose to of all. There was never a card that received as little love as Sparky as of this point, and
Was Barb Hut ever good? Because Barb Hut now is arguably the worst building in the game. We need an Evo Barb Hut. You know, chat, Evo Sparky would be good. I have an idea. Like, my concept of it would be just a Sparky, right? It's a one cycle, of course. And you place it down, and it can't be zapped. It can be frozen, but it just can't be. It can't be reset. Its attack cannot be reset. Yeah, that'd be good.
it seemed like such a waste
Especially
of
as
a
a
card
one
edition
cycle?
by now. The memes weren't slowing down. Fix Sparky. She doesn't deserve this. Buff the trash can on wheels. Let's see what a competitively viable Sparky looks like. If you were still losing to her by now, that was just a huge skill issue on your part, because she was countered by just about everything.
Still
Even
is.
One Elixir Skeletons
Yeah.
could completely shut it down, and it wasn't even like a situation where it was thriving in mid to lower ladder ranges and only underperformed.
Look!
competitively.
This bitch is just sitting there going, Vim, Vim, Vim. Like,
Couldn't overlevel Trash Can because she was a legendary, and back then, legendaries were very hard to level up. She really only saw use in a few niche giant beatdown decks here and there, and even in those cases, it just felt like people were trying to force Sparky into those decks for the sake of being able to say they were succeeding with the worst card in the game. It eventually got so bad that in June 2017, Supercell added a loading tip specifically reading, calling Sparky a trash can on wheels hurts her feelings.
alright,
This was
maybe I'm just wrong. If Supercell started referring it to that, but...
truly the Nerf Minor of 2017. Supercell acknowledging
Yeah,
and calling
Nerf
it
Minor.
the
I knew what Nerf Minor was, but like...
meme and still not doing anything was crazy. Trash Can on Wheels was constantly belittled, made fun of, and used as a comparison to other bad cards. Bad cards that would over time
Oh, I need
get
some-
buffed or reworked in some way. Other than the Wizard, I have never seen a case in all of Clash Royale history of a card getting so neglected and ignored when it clearly needed help. Surely something had to be coming. They couldn't just let it rot forever, right?
Nope. That's what they did to the wizard. I mean, Evo Wizard! Evo Wizard! Nope.
1
today.
year, 5 months, 6 days. That's how long it took Sparky to receive her first balance change. There had been so many good ideas thrown around by this point, like giving it a shield that was immune to stuns, or having her
Hey.
attack splash on
Bowl knowledge.
to air troops, but through the rise of Trifecta, Goizen, Elite Barbarians, Logbait, 3M Heal, Night Witch, and Bridge Spam, the Trash Can on Wheels stayed exactly the same. But with the October 2017 Epic Quests update, it was finally Sparky's time to shine. There were so many possible ways to change it. So, what was the final decision? Well, it would get a small rework.
Oh.
Its hit speed was decreased by a full second while receiving a 15% damage decrease. This
Why?
meant now it would take 3 shots to take out a princess tower, but that
Why?
quicker charge time made it
Yeah.
very worth it.
Why'd
It
you nerf
also
the
wouldn't
damage,
one-shot
though?
itself anymore, which is fine in a
Oh, yeah, it
balancing
leaves a little
sense,
bit of
but I always
health.
found the fact that it one-shot itself to be
Was so
quite
satisfying,
charming. I just
yeah.
like the idea that Sparky is so powerful that she can't even survive her own blast. Overall, it seemed like Supercell
Alright, blood
liked her the way
glazing.
she was. They wanted her to attack very slowly, but for each blast to feel very
mattered,
impactful.
yes.
And I agree with keeping
Yes,
generally the
yes.
same guard, because that's what made Sparky so unique. But the real question is, how much did this rework actually
Chat, who
help?
else is
Well, I
rocking
think
Mad
it's safe to
Swarm
say it was
Pass
an
right now?
overall buff as intended,
Just
but
me?
she still wasn't exactly clouding the leaderboards. By December, it was still showing no usage in top 200 ladder. She still attacked too slow, Zat was still everywhere, Rocket was pretty popular, and if all of that wasn't bad enough, another new card was added that had the stun ability, which brought the total number up to 6. Which is especially sad because this card looks like Sparky's children. If you had a card that could repeatedly stun, Sparky's hit speed may as well have been 30 minutes. She could be fun if you used her in the right deck, but if you were seriously trying to push trophies or win challenges, it was just a trash can on wheels. But hey, at least Supercell finally gave her some attention, and it's good to be grateful they didn't just mindlessly buff it a few months after it was out just because it was legendary. However, as we cruise through 2018, it seemed like Sparky was undoubtedly going to need some more help, because its usage remained very close to zero throughout the whole year. There weren't really any major Sparky developments.
Chat, as I'm watching this video, Kai Sinat and AMP stream, it just gave me a free fucking mystery box. It was a fucking 2-star. Thanks, Kai Sinat. You really support the game, don't you? You fucking dickhead, bruv.
Until October,
Bloody
one
give
of
you
which was
hiding.
thanks to a new win condition, the Goblin Giant.
The
The Goblin
Goblin
Giant had a
Giant.
soft launch a few months prior to October.
Oh, this
but
is
was getting buffed now.
This was Sparky's reign here. I'm guilty, chat. I'll be using this deck a lot.
Which naturally prompted some usage out of him. He still wasn't the most popular card, but he had a solid win rate and managed to win a few grand challenges, and almost every single one of those winning decks also had a Sparky in it.
Yes, sir.
This was the primary one going around at the time. Even though neither of them were really good cards, they had some
kinda
unique
fit,
synergy
yeah.
that allowed them to succeed together in a vacuum. But just when Sparky was starting to show a little bit of competitive viability, Supercell responded by adding another electric card, the Electro Dragon. So now, there were 7 cards that could reset Sparky, and 3 that could repeatedly reset her. The environment was just becoming more and more disfavored towards Sparky. So finally, on December 5th, 2018, Sparky would receive a buff. This was a range increase of half a tile. It sounds like nothing, but even a tiny range buff for most cards can make a huge difference, and Sparky was certainly no exception, because this meant she now had the same range as the Electro Wizard, but her first hit attack time was 1/10 of a second faster than the E-Wizard's, meaning that if she came face to face with an Electro Wizard fully charged,
kill him.
she would fire before it could get a hit in.
Nah, wait, this
kicking out
interaction is not in the game now, though, right? No, it is. Yeah, it is. Never mind.
with ease. The
Think it
Electro
is.
Wizard still had an Enter the Arena ability, so if placed directly on top of Sparky, it could still hard counter it. But nevertheless, this change helped Sparky a lot,
W.
because Electro Wizard was one of the main things holding Sparky back. After this balance change went live, Sparky was showing the real
Electricity!
potential to be a competitively
Electrified!
viable card.
Zap! Zap! Mega Knight!
Because not only was the Electro Wizard interaction huge, but that extra half tile of range meant that she locked onto her target 2/3 of a second faster if rolling up to it. And again, I know it doesn't sound like a lot,
No one
but
works
these
harder
little
than Dave
differences
in
make
this
a
house.
huge impact. It was nice to see Sparky receiving some love after witnessing how much the environment was changing to disfavor her, which is why it was so disappointing when this buff was reverted just 2 days later. Apparently, there were several cards in that update that received accidental range buffs, so Supercell was correcting their mistakes. It was unfortunate because it really seems like a great change, but this was still good in a way. If a buffed Sparky accidentally ended up in the live game, that can only be because the devs intentionally put a buffed Sparky in the developer build. Sparky was on the balancing radar, and that meant she was likely going to get intentionally buffed soon. There's always a chance the devs find a reason to cancel a change for whatever reason, but 2019
bold
was looking
fuck,
to
isn't his
be a
name Aaron or
favorable
some
year for the
shit?
trash can. Within the very first week of the new year, Sparky's range was announced to be increased by 1/4 of a tile,
So
which
back to
was
normal.
strange because every other card's range has only ever been half or whole. But I guess the devs decided a half tile was too much.
We love this
It ended
Sparky.
up getting the half tile range increase anyway due to inconsistencies of interactions, as Supercell explained. What were these interactions? Well, they didn't go into much detail, but I have a theory. The only major interaction that was mentioned was between Sparky and the Electro Wizard, so it likely had to do with that. It makes more sense too, because Electro Wizard has a weird history when it comes to one-on-one interactions. Even today, if 2 Electro Wizards approach each other,
The one that's placed first will win.
placed on the arena first will get the first attack, even if they're both fully loaded in by the time they approach each other.
Chat, you know what we call that? We call that ball knowledge.
Meaning, even at equal level with no interruptions, one Electro Wizard will come out victorious. This isn't how a card should be. If 2 cards at equal level attack each other with no interferences, they should cancel each other out. But for some reason, the Electro Wizard had this weird advantage where it would benefit just from being placed on the arena first against certain cards. So my guess is that this was the case with
Bowling!
Sparky. I
Strike!
bet you at 4.75 tiles, Sparky would beat an Electro Wizard one-on-one
Boom!
only if it was placed first. If the Electro Wizard was placed first, then he would
Boom!
win.
Oh,
And
what?
that would be a confusing inconsistency,
that's
especially if
fucked.
it looked like both cards were placed at the same time. So would it really have been the end of the world if she shot at 5 tiles away versus 4.75 tiles? What's the difference?
Yeah.
They could have been a little worried at the fact that the Goblin Giant was getting buffed in the same set of balance changes, since they did show some potential together before. So buffing both
Yeah, the Goblin Giant, like, Loki fucking fast as shit. Like, Usain Bolt type shit on Flair's twin. TSPMO ICL.
both could have led to that combo becoming very prevalent. However, looking at the rates a few weeks after this buff went live, Sparky was still struggling to find a place. Over the next few months, however, it did get better. By
good.
April, you saw it in about 5% of Grand Challenge decks with a very healthy win rate. It was still appearing pretty much in the same stuff you had seen it in the past, with Giant and Goblin Giant. You'll notice that most Sparky decks contain zap bait cards like Bats and Spear Goblins to force the opponent to make a decision between taking out the pesky swarms or prevent her from getting a shot. It's kinda sad that at this point it had been out for almost 3 years and this was its peak, but at least she was settling in a healthy spot. For the next few months, the use rate continued to hover around 4 to 5%, with no significant developments. But things took a turn in September 2019. You still saw Sparky appearing in what she was appearing in before, but these two off-meta decks both reached the #1
Wait, what?
spot on the global leaderboards at different points in the season.
#1 global leaderboard.
She was appearing in before, but these two off
With this? What? Is this fireball bait?
meta decks both
I'm
reached
so
the
confused.
#1 spot on the global leaderboard.
Pros
at
be
different
using
points in the
anything,
season.
bro.
I'm not even going to try and explain how a prominent fisherman and broken
Yes.
executioner caused
Yeah.
the butterfly effect
Yes.
to make these decks #1,
Yeah.
but for a brief period, Sparky's use rate spiked to 9%. By far the highest recorded usage rate up until this point.
9%,
Things
bro,
got even
go
more
crazy.
in the following month, Season 4. October 2019.
This is one of the best
This season
updates.
saw the introduction of a new beatdown
Besides
win
from this
condition,
card.
the Elixir Golem.
Yeah.
The Elixir Golem was unique in the sense that it gave a lot of stats up front for a low cost, with the downside being that it gave Elixir to the opponent, so it allowed you to build really big pushes for cheaper. It's clear to see how a card like this would benefit a 6 Elixir support card. Getting a strong tank whose forms combined had more health than a Giant and a supporting Sparky for 9 Elixir total was a great deal.
Yeah.
You didn't have to dedicate so much Elixir to a
Elixir.
tanky Sparky combo anymore.
that is
With
true.
Elixir Golem bringing out the potential in Sparky, she managed to hit a new all-time height of popularity.
12%,
They stuck together for a
hey!
couple of seasons.
Good on
but
you,
by the end of
Sparky.
2019,
You going
they had drifted
crazy.
apart, and Sparky was back to that 4 to 5% usage range almost exclusively with Goblin Giant. 2020 was pretty much the same, but in October, 2 new Electro cards would enter the arena. The Electro Spirit acted essentially the
Electro
same
Giant used to be so annoying.
as the Ice Spirit, but could chain onto troops further spread out in exchange for stunning for less time. Electro Giant, on the other hand, was unique because it only stuns when attacked within a specific radius. So not only could it not reset Sparky mid-charge, but if you placed it outside the danger zone, it could take out Electro Giant unscathed, ironically making it one of the best counters to it. These card additions, thankfully for Sparky, did not end up causing any noticeable harm. The rates were still about the same, but even though they
Okay.
were continuously average to below average, Sparky would end up getting a nerf in November.
Why?
This is a true story.
Oh no.
It happened right here in my town. A lot of people die in a lot of really weird ways. You're not gonna find it in the news.
It's
Weapons in Silver Zone
Weapons.
7.
Shorty get inspired. How about that? How about that?
But why? Why nerf a card with
KFC with some
below average
absolute banging
rates?
music.
If we look at the Grand Challenge stats the day before the change went live, it only suggests the card needed a buff, if anything. But there's more to the story here, and it's a good example as to why you have to look at more than just general competitive rates when it comes to balancing. You see, even if the rates were below average in general Grand Challenges, they were above average for top ladder, and at 8 or more wins in Grand Challenges. These were the rates Supercell themselves provided for Sparky in Grand Challenges at 8 or more wins for this period. These were above average, but nothing crazy high.
Oh
so what
shit,
else was wrong?
that
Well, they
fucking
mentioned
prince
again
just
that
got
it was a very
sniped,
frustrating
twin.
card for a lot of casual players who simply didn't understand how she worked. And finally, it was mentioned that since she was so prominent in the competitive scene, it essentially forced players to include at least one reset card in their deck, which led to less diversity and more restriction in deck building. And this can actually explain why she was removed from draft mode earlier in
that
the
just
year.
ruins the game.
So all in all, Sparky herself may not have been overplayed, but she was influential enough to make the game unhealthier and less fun in many ways for many
That
players.
is kinda sad.
The nerf she ended up receiving was pretty drastic. It was a first hit attack time increase of half a second, double what it was before. This meant an Electro Wizard would again hit first in a one-on-one interaction. But funny enough, this nerf actually made Sparky stronger in one specific interaction. This was against the Bandit. In a one-on-one interaction
she could
before,
hit, 'cause the
Sparky
Bandit
would
used to
shoot
just-
while the Bandit just started dashing.
Ready?
And since the Bandit's invincible while dashing, it would take no
Boing.
damage, and thus give it plenty of time to take Sparky out. But now, since the first hit attack was so much slower, its attack wouldn't fire until the Bandit was finished dashing, blasting it away with ease. Ultimately, I think this was a pretty solid change. I'm glad they left the range alone. Even if Sparky was going to become a niche, low-tier card after this, at least they gave her a while to shine and let everyone see what a competitively viable Sparky looked like. This change also ended up being the last balance change the card ever received. So the Sparky from November 2020 is the exact same Sparky we see in
now?
June 2024.
Okay.
So how has the card been since then? Predictably, this card fell in popularity following the nerf, but she wasn't back to being a trash can on wheels. She was pretty much relying on Goblin Giant, but Goblin Giant wasn't even that good. So the only people that seemed to be playing Sparky now were the dedicated Sparky players. I couldn't
Like
find any
me,
Sparky
like
decks
me,
that reached the
chat.
top
I'm a dedicated Sparky fan.
deck list since that November rework, until April 2022,
Mighty Miner?
where this specific Giant
Yay!
Skeleton Mirror deck briefly made the list, but it's barely even worth mentioning. I only do because there's just no other decks that were popular enough to make the list,
Cha-boing,
so there's
boing.
nothing else to really talk about until 2023. This year is where things started to
Evos.
get real interesting, because this was the year where the devs would finally start to give the Goblin Giant some buffs. These buffs wouldn't
Evo.
come all at once, but rather across the span of multiple seasons. In February 2023, the Backpack Spear Goblins got a hit speed decrease of 0.2 of a second.
Oh.
In April 2023, the Spear Goblin troops' range was increased by half a tile.
Now you're playing with fire, twin.
And finally, in August 2023, the Goblin Giant's hit points were increased by 6%. The devs really went from giving the Goblin Giant the Sparky treatment to suddenly actively buffing it immensely. Shockingly, after multiple straight buffs, people became interested in using him more. And the synergy between him and Sparky never died. It's impressive how long this combo was able to thrive together.
Yeah.
The fact that even 5 years later this combo was seeing so much play together makes it arguably one of the most iconic combos in the game's history. As Goblin Giant rose in popularity, Sparky rose right along with him. Their rates
Yes.
were nearly identical.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Just you wait just you wait until they added the bloody Evo Gob Giant. Oh, Gobber Giant, lad. Fuck you, man.
Every top Goblin Giant deck had a Sparky in it, and vice versa. Despite the most recent Goblin Giant buff happening in August 2023, and many players saying that the buffs were too much, Supercell was not quick to nerf him. Things seemed to get even better in November 2023 following the release of the Little Prince. Little Prince was a
Oh, Guardian. Future King over here.
very influential card upon release that didn't
Protect the air.
seem to help or hurt Sparky too
Alright.
much. But a few weeks after
No, I'm
settling
sorry, my
in
bad.
and receiving an emergency nerf, it integrated well with Goblin Giant Sparky, helping it to become even more popular. This is when Sparky reached her new all-time high of popularity. But
Hey.
despite being at her best statistically, she wasn't overpowered, which is again why I emphasize there is a lot more than just rates when it comes to deciding how and when
Sneaky
to balance a
golem?
card. The end of 2023 was just a chaotic mess that just so happened to benefit Sparky particularly
I thought
well.
Evos were
Little
released
Prince
at the
and
end of
Goblin Giant were
2023.
both too
Oh, yeah, they
strong,
were, my
and
bad.
inevitably both of those cards were
He
going
just
to
didn't
get
mention
nerfed and thus cause Sparky's usage to fall with them. Clearly, Sparky's rates were tied almost perfectly with the Goblin Giant for most of this period.
Yeah.
there's no reason to suggest otherwise to the fact that if Goblin Giant fell in usage,
Sparky
Sparky
did.
would fall with it.
Yeah.
Goblin Giant's first nerf would come on December 13th, which would revert the February 2023
Aw.
buff. Surprisingly, the Goblin Giant nerf seems to hurt Sparky more than the Goblin Giant
Aw,
itself,
man.
because while Sparky's rates fell, Goblin Giants held pretty steady, meaning they were the farthest apart in usage they were ever. The most
No!
popular Goblin Giant decks were rising with Little Prince and simply ditching Sparky,
God,
but
fucking
nevertheless,
Little
they
Prince.
were still
Prime
seeing a
Little
lot
Prince was
together.
moving like
Proceeding
Prime
for the
Vaughn.
Little Prince nerfs in January, their usage gap shrunk immensely, being nearly identical again. Once again, every popular deck that included one of them would always include the other. The combo was still very strong in the first few months of 2024, but unfortunately for Sparky, her partner would receive an HP nerf in March, severely weakening the combo yet again.
Meet Asana, a work management platform that helps companies.
Shit, I
cut
might need to get
time
YouTube
and save
Premium
more
because
time.
this shit is pissing me off. Okay, can I skip? No, 15-second ad!
In the preceding
Just
weeks
let me
of
just
this
watch a
change,
video about Clash. I don't
Sparky's
wanna
rates
care
would
about
fall to
fucking
about
toilet,
what they've
bro.
been since before the February 2023 Goblin Giant buff. And that's pretty much what they've stayed at around up until today. These rates are not good, and indicate that a buff may be in order. The new evolved Stunning Tesla certainly isn't doing it any favors, but given the delicacy of this card, a buff seems unlikely. However, if Goblin Giant ever gets a buff again, that will basically have the same effect as buffing Sparky directly. It's hard to know what
I'm
to
not
expect.
seeing any level
With tower
15s,
troops and
obviously,
evolution
yeah.
to potential
No,
new
level
card
15 was
releases,
out
there's no
then.
telling how this card will adapt to future metas. Sparky just better pray they don't add a tower troop that can stun cards. We've gone through the entire history of Sparky, a
W.
card that only received 3 intentional balance changes over its 8-year history. But there has been a lot more development-wise if you look at all of the unintentional attributes of Sparky over the years.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the accidental range buff of December 2018. I'm talking about glitches, with cards that have had unique mechanics over the
Sniper Sparky.
years.
I love doing tornado trick shots, like across the river.
Has come a lot of unintentional interactions, and there were a surprisingly high number of glitches involving
What?
Sparky. I'd say it's in the top 3 glitches.
That bitch is an AK. Let's see that again.
And I'm not talking
Fucking
about the accidental
what?
range buff of December 2018. I'm talking about glitches. With cards
Bitch
that have
turned
had
into a
unique
musketeer.
mechanics
What the
over
fuck was
years,
that?
Has come a lot of unintentional interactions.
Let's see.
And there
No.
are a surprisingly
That's one.
high number of
2,
glitches involving Sparky.
3.
I'd say it's in the top 3 glitchiest cards in Clash Royale history. So I wanted to dedicate a portion of the video at the end here
Oh,
just
what?
to go over all the notable glitches
What?
involving Sparky
It just got reset.
in the past. Some of these are a bit hard to tell exactly when they were introduced and patched, but we at least have a general idea as to when they were active. The first glitch people noticed with Sparky was an infinite range buff.
Oh,
Although
fucking
Sparky
what?
always had to be within 4.5 tiles of its target in order to lock onto it, it didn't have to remain in that range in order for
Yep.
Sparky to
Pew!
fire. Usually this didn't matter, because if a troop was within its range, they would target a card closer to her, if not Sparky herself. And if Sparky was facing a building targeting troop, it still wouldn't matter because most of them couldn't move very fast and thus they would stay within range. But there was an exception to this, being the Hog Rider. Since Hog Rider was the only troop to move very fast and target buildings, it could very easily outrun Sparky's range. But if Sparky was able to lock on and she wasn't interrupted, it would continue to focus
Oh,
on the Hog and
shit.
blast at it no matter how
Nah,
far it
I
may
remember
bring
that.
her. This glitch was noticeable with Tornado as well. These interactions certainly benefited Sparky, but were not situations you'd frequently experience in a real
Yeah.
match. I couldn't find any instances of this glitch happening beyond December 2016, so it was most likely patched in the December 2016 or January 2017 update. There was another notable glitch, however, that certainly would never
2017
happen in
patch.
an actual match, which is perhaps why Supercell was so slow on fixing it. Basically, if Sparky shot 2 Ice Golems at once, she would deal double damage. This meant that if
Why?
she shot 2 Ice Golems next to a Princess Tower, that tower would be destroyed,
Wait, what?
even at full HP.
What the
This was
fuck?
interesting, but obviously it would never happen in a real match, because not only would someone have to mirror their
Clone,
Ice
yeah,
Golem,
who's doing
but
that?
also have terrible placement. I can find this bug happening as late as January 2017, so it seems to have been patched in the January 2017 update. After a brief period of no noticeable Sparky glitches, the March 2017 update brought some new ones. The most notable one was the rapid fire glitch. And yes, it's as real and scary as it sounds.
What?
For this glitch to occur, Sparky would need to shoot at a troop, but that troop would need to die from something else before the Sparky blast reached it. This is why you commonly saw it occur when Sparky was
That bitch
facing
is
the
a double
graveyard.
barrel.
Kind of weird that at one point in time, Sparky was a decent counter to Graveyard. The attribute that gave Sparky this ability was more so meant for slow attacking melee cards like P.E.K.K.A, so that they wouldn't waste their attack on cards that were already gone. But Sparky was a splash card, so even if an attack was wasted on a dead troop, the surrounding cards were still being affected by that shot. And it just doesn't make sense in Sparky's case to have this mechanic, because the blast can't instantly recharge just because she missed. As you could imagine, this glitch made Sparky significantly scarier, and thus was patched quickly. But patching this bug led to another bug, where sometimes Sparky wouldn't shoot anything at all, and its charge would still reset if knocked out of range of its target. People reportedly had their Sparky charges reset with things like log and tornado,
Yep, I remember
which
the log
should
one.
never happen. This glitch was in the game for a very long time, not being patched until the Clan Wars update 1 year later in April 2018, which Supercell confirms in the patch notes. It's really the only time they ever acknowledged a Sparky bug fix in the patch notes. Swinging back a bit, there was another Sparky bug that came with the March 2017 update.
You're dragging it, bro. Wrap
Before
it
this
up.
update, cloning a Sparky would reset its charge completely, which made it not worth cloning most of the time.
Oh, I
this
actually
patch
remember
made
that.
it so that cloning a Sparky would not reset the original. However, this came with an unintended consequence. During the short cloning period now, Sparky would actually be completely immune from resetting. Clone essentially acted as Sparky's
what?
temporary stun shield, which was very frustrating if you were the defender. Trying to perform this glitch intentionally in a real match
Would
really
get you-
wasn't worth doing though, because Clone wasn't that good in general, and
Clone's
predicting
never been
exactly when
good.
the opponent would zap was tricky. I was able to find reported instances of this bug occurring as late as December 2020, but when trying to replicate in game today, it
Nah.
appeared to be
Yeah,
patched.
good.
There's another bug
Good
similar
stuff.
to this with the Fisherman, which was introduced when the Fisherman was introduced
Yeah.
in July 2019. If Sparky was stunned while being pulled by a Fisherman, it wouldn't reset. This glitch could very well at least partially explain that weird Sparky surge during the Fisherman takeover of September 2019. Unlike the clone glitch, this one was never patched. This will still happen if you try it in game today.
Wait,
and
what?
that's the history of Sparky glitches. That was a total of 6 that I covered. Now that I think of it, the fact it had a glitch history could actually explain why its first balance change took so long to happen. So really, what is the future of Sparky? She's definitely not the worst card in the game, but still underperforms
Yeah, she'll always be a support card. On God.
in competitive play today. I don't think a straight buff is the right move here. If anything though, I think just a slight reversion on the first hit attack time change from 2020
That's what I'm saying.
would be fine. But I would even hesitate on that, because she clearly has the potential to thrive in her current state with the right tank. Regardless of what happens, I think Sparky's a fun card to play and is just a great addition to the game overall. One thing I'm really excited about is Sparky's future evolution.
Hey, wait. Let's see the concept.
I typically don't care much for evolutions, but I think Sparky's has the potential to be really cool. I think the ideas that were brought up years ago of giving her a stun resistance
Didn't I just say that, chat? Oh, shit.
perfect evolution ideas. And just to be clear, she wouldn't be able to target air troops, but if an air troop was flying above her ground target, that's where it would take
Yes,
damage.
that would be good.
I also thought about how since she's now the only electric themed card without any sort of stun ability,
Give her stun.
evolution will
I was thinking this. I don't want to say it because it just really wouldn't make sense. Because it's not really going to stun shit. Because it's like usually a one-shot card. So no.
probably implement that.
Let's hear 'em out.
Just like the Tesla. Currently,
Let's hear
no
'em
card
out.
has a splashed stun attack.
Yeah.
So giving that to Sparky could make for some unique interactions. We'll just have to see what Supercell decides to do when the time inevitably comes. But anyway,
I guess Electro Dragon does, but
let me know your thoughts about Sparky and what you'd like to see for her evolution. Also, let me know which card's history you would like to see next. Thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you later.
chat, check out Gratz. Remember to subscribe to the channel, follow the Twitch, put the noties on, type shit. Anyway, that'll be all for today. Have a good one. Peace out, boys.